I am Kay Wilson, regulated Canadian immigration consultant, and I'm joining you guys here in from Regina, Saskatchewan. And today we have a few important topics that we're going to talk about very briefly. One of the main ones, of course, is the Canada Caregiver Program. We've been getting a lot of questions about that, and so we decided to do a session where we'll be able to address, the questions that you guys have and provide a bit more information about this particular, well, it's two programs. So these programs, immigration pilots that are set to open in the spring. So in March, in at the end of March this year. So you would have all heard the announcement about the new caregiver pilots, and I've seen quite a bit of interest. So we will provide you with some background as to what's required for that program and how you could possibly apply. All right. And as you are joining me today, let me know in the comments where you're joining me from. All right. I see purpose driven watching from Jamaica. Awesome. Thanks for joining. Okay, guys. So I see folks joining from different parts of the world, from Nova Scotia. Awesome. Okay, so the caregiver program was first announced last year, and it's a part of the 2024 to 2026 immigration levels plan that was released by the government of Canada. And through this program, the government aims to admit over 15,000 caregivers as permanent residents throughout this period, right? So it's the official title is the Home Care Worker Pilot, and it will be opening on March 31st, 2025. Right? So that's when it's set to open. However, because it's opening in March doesn't mean that's when you start preparing. So if this is a program that you have an interest in, you should be preparing now. Historically speaking, whenever the caregiver programs open, they typically fill up within days of the pilot actually opening. And generally as well, these pilots usually come with a cap. So there's going to be an application cap on the number of people that could apply at that particular time once it opens. And once the cap is reached, which, for one of the particular streams, it's usually closed within, like I said, within a day. So there would be some prep to do ahead of, applying if that's what you're thinking of doing. So I'm just going to provide some details about, the background of this program and what are, as far as we know right now, what the potential requirements are going to be. So the home care worker pilot is going to replace the previous pilots, which were closed in June 2024. So previously we had the home child care provider pilot and the home support worker pilot, right? And those programs ended last year. And so since June to current, we didn't have a replacement program. We had an announced program. So the government did announce that they will be launching the programs. And so now we have more details about that. Know that a definitive date has been given. So as I mentioned, it's launching March 31st, 2025. So here's what we know so far about this program. So caregivers will now have the opportunity to come to Canada with PR status. So essentially, applying through this program, as the government noted, they will be able to have PR upon arrival. So we'll see closer to when more details are announced what that looks like. Under the previous programs, there were different pathways. So caregivers could come to Canada on an initial work permit and then apply for permanent resident status. With this program, they said candidates will be granted PR on arrival. So we'll see, what that looks like once additional details are released about the program. These programs allow caregivers to work for organizations in Canada, providing temporary or part-time care for individuals, recovering from illnesses, injuries, those who are semi-independent. So you'll have, generally in the past programs, you'll see a stream for caring for children, for example. So you may call that a nanny or, au pair, whatever. So there would be that category where you're caring for children. So that's one stream. And then the second stream usually is caring for people with, certain illnesses or who are semi-independent. Um, these pilots will create a clear and direct pathway to permanent residency once they are introduced. And I will talk a bit about what we know so far in terms of the eligibility criteria. So candidates who are interested in applying under the caregiver program, so one, you're going to need your language test, right? So the minimum, based on what was announced last year, when the government introduced the pilot, CLB 4 was the minimum requirement for language. So whether that's in English or French, you would need to meet the CLB 4 requirement. So that would be one. The second thing is Canadian high school diploma or equivalent. So whether it's, there will be some countries, right, where you'll do high school in that country. However, when you do your credential assessment, you may not get the equivalent of Canadian high school. So you'll have to ensure that whatever it is that you're using to, or you're going to have evaluated, is equivalent to Canadian high school or higher. Okay, so that would be the second requirement. And then you'll need to demonstrate that you have a recent relevant work experience. Now, recent work experience, we're expecting that to be like within the last year. Generally, for most of these programs, you'll see recent being defined as, experience within the last 3 to 5 years. So more details about the specific minimum work experience requirements will be provided. But I can say generally, based on programs in the past, usually it's between 6 months to a year. But like I mentioned, we will have more details once the actual updates are provided from IRCC. Then the other requirement, which I think is probably one of the most important ones, is to have a full-time job offer in home care. So you will need to have a job with, whether it is an individual, so it could be an individual home. So maybe you'll be working in someone's home. For the most part, these are the types of jobs that are usually used in this program. So you'll have a job with an individual or, with a company, maybe like a care home. You will need to have a job, a full-time job offer with an employer in Canada. And like I said, that employer could be a company, could be an individual. So what does this look like? With this program, you'll often see, for example, maybe you might have a relative or friends in Canada who may have children that they need help with caring for, during the daytime. So maybe they need someone to care for their children on a full-time basis. Maybe they need someone to take care of an elderly. It's going to be jobs like those. And I think the best way to secure employment under this particular program, it's going to be using your network. Who do you know in Canada? Do you have friends, relatives, or do you know someone who knows someone that might need somebody to take care of their loved ones? Because it's a very personal, job. You're going to be taking care of a family member. Most likely you might be staying in their homes, right? So people are usually very careful about who they're going to hire for in-home care, right? If you're going to work with maybe a larger organization like a care facility or something like that, then it might be a little bit different, and the way that you go about your job search might be different. But these are the things to bear in mind. And It's very important that the job is genuine. So it must be a genuine job offer. And these are some of the things that the officer will be reviewing in any application, right? They want to know that the offer is genuine, and that you will have a job when you come to Canada, that your employer can pay you when you come to Canada. So those are some of the things that officers will be looking at. In terms of getting the actual job, other certifications that you can prepare for as well might be CPR or first aid, and anything along that line that might help you to get the job. It's not necessarily required for the program specifically. However, it may help you in your job search and in standing out to employers, because again, if you're going to take care of folks who are vulnerable, then these are definitely skills that you need to have, of course. All right, so there will be some requirements as well for employers to meet. So it's not just, so you'll have requirements for the individual applicant, and you'll also have requirements for employers to meet who will be hiring the caregiver. All right, and so bear that in mind. But to wrap up this segment, I'll say one of the key takeaways here is there's no age limit. Somebody's asking about age limit. There are no age limits as far as I'm aware. One of the key requirements, though, are the key things to do right now will be to start preparing. So if you are hoping to be a part of the intake that will be happening on March 31st, then you should be looking at these requirements, and start preparing, ensuring that you have all your documents in place, ensuring that your documents are meeting the required minimum standards that IRCC has set, ensuring that you and your employer can meet the program requirements. And of course, if you're an employer and you're listening to me right now, or if you are a candidate and you have a job offer or a potential offer, and you want to ensure that you are ready and you are prepared well in advance, of the March 31st launch, and can take action once the program launches. Because as I mentioned, these programs fill up really quick. So if you are, in that position and you need additional information or you need assistance with applying to this program, feel free to reach out to myself and my team. You can send us an email, info@nccanadaimmigration.com, or admin@nccanadaimmigration.com, and feel free to visit our website to schedule a consultation. Okay, so that's for the caregiver pilot, and these are really great programs. I know of quite a bit of people right now who have relatives here in Canada. They would like to have, whether it is family members to come from overseas to take care of them and to be able to stay with them long term. But because there were no pilots, there were no programs available to facilitate this, it has proven very difficult for some families. So I know I have a lot of both families and applicants who have been waiting for this program to launch. So it's a move in the right direction for sure. Let me see what other questions let me just come over here. Okay, so how about persons without status that are looking for status? If you're in Canada and you have, for whatever reason, you have lost your status, there may be options, but the important thing is how quickly you are acting, right? The options that will be available to you, so the longer you're out of status, the less options you'll have. Let me put it that way. So it's important that as soon as you lose status, or well, first, you don't want to be in that position where you lose your status. So always seek to get help before you get to that point. So if your status is running out, your work permit or whatever it is might be expiring soon, it's highly recommended to start that process to get help. in advance of that happening. However, if you find yourself in that situation where your status has expired, um, you do want to do an initial consultation. I would highly recommend that as soon as possible. Don't just stay there with your status being expired. There may be options that you might not be aware of, but like I said, the longer the time period that you're out of status, the harder it will be for you. So that's the best advice I could give. Make sure to get help, whether it's from us or wherever. Do get some help with seeing what your options might be before it gets too late. All right, so I'm going to take one more questions. Do we do visa applications? Yes, we do visa applications. Somebody says, is it possible for me to get a job before relocating to Canada as a skilled immigrant? So, yes, it is possible. And I've had a lot of clients who have done that. I can also say, though, it's not the easiest thing to do to secure it. And also, I will quantify that was or qualify that was saying it depends on what you do, right? It depends on the type of job that you're looking for and the specific occupation that you're in. But it is possible, but I would say especially now more and more it's becoming a lot harder. I usually tend to recommend looking at pathways that don't require a job. If you can look at pathways that don't require a job offer first, explore those options or exhaust those options first before going down the job path. Um, Unless it's like some of the programs I mentioned today, like the two that are launching, unless it's programs like those that are brand new. We have specific communities and employers that are looking for immigrants. They're open to overseas candidates, and there's a great demand, right? So it depends on where you're looking, because each region, each community, each province will be different and will have a different labor market. So bear that in mind. So and my last one, how do I go about this pathway? I'm a Nigerian RN. I'm assuming you're talking about the caregiver program. I would recommend going back and looking at the video once the live ends. But like I mentioned, with the caregiver program, you would definitely need a job offer with an employer in Canada, whether it's an individual household or a company. So that would be the first thing. If you are a registered nurse, though, you might have other options that don't require a job offer. So if you're in healthcare, skilled trades, any of the trades, construction, um, you have STEM occupations, information technology, transport, trades and transport. You have there are a few occupations or sectors that will have greater demand than others. So if you're in any of those, then you will have a lot more opportunities in terms of programs that are specifically designed to attract people with work experience and skill set in those areas. So bear that in mind, especially if you're in healthcare. There are a lot of options and opportunities. I think all of my clients who are in healthcare, they usually go through the application process really quick because of the demand. Also, if you're French speaking or if you're willing to learn French, you can give yourself that upper hand and that edge over other candidates. A lot of the programs right now are going, towards a more pool-based approach, and so our format, and so some candidates might stand out more than others. And it also, like I said, immigration is both federal and provincial. So there will be a factor as well based on where you're looking, which province and so on. And each of the individual provinces will also have different focus. They will have different occupations that are in demand and different areas that they want to focus on based on the labor market needs in that particular province. So I recommend, doing a consultation with our team, and then we can help you to really narrow down where you should be focusing on, what programs, what are the requirements, what are the documents that are needed, and how to go about making an application. All right, so thank you guys for joining me today, and I trust you have been able to find value in this information. Reach out if you have questions, and I'll catch up with you guys next time. Thank you.